Hey, it's Christopher, aka the Bronze Age Nerd, and today we need to talk about the elephant in the room, the comic book market and its current state. So the first thing I need to say when I'm talking about something like the comic book market and how it could influence buying decisions is that everything in this video is my opinion. What it means is you have to take everything with a grain of salt. This is merely my impression about what's going to happen from watching from my perspective. So I'm recording this near the end of July in 2021, and what we know about the comic book market right now is that it's at basically record highs in just about every category. And I'm speaking about the market in general when I say it's at record highs, because there are books that are actually losing ground, which is kind of interesting and something that you definitely should consider. However, most comic books, especially spec-related keys for movie news and TV projects, that kind of stuff, are up right now. But I think over the highs we saw in May and June, in July, we're starting to see some pullback. And I think most of that pulling back is happening in the modern market, or the minor keys, we'll call them, or minor spec books. Most major keys in high regards by today's standards, I think, are safe. I do think that the entire market overall is due for a correction. I think we've seen beginnings of a correction, but at least in the United States, the economy has basically foresaw, oh, the pandemic is ending and things will return to normal. And I think that was starting to affect prices a little bit. And then we saw, just because of the current situation, that maybe that's not happening. Maybe that's not going to be such a quick end to the pandemic and sort of the measures we've taken as we've seen the Delta variant and all that stuff kind of take off. Anyways, the point is that we're seeing potentially this could continue for a while, and that makes me wonder if the market's going to stay healthy for that duration. But since we did see things start to return to normal and we did see the market kind of correct itself a little bit, I think that's great information to have for the future. So I only think that gap is going to widen between those minor spec books and those major keys. And just to be clear, major key, I'm talking about X-Men 1, I'm talking about, Amazing Fantasy 15, I'm talking about those kind of evergreen characters that everybody loves, Hulk 181, and mega keys that we're going to see continue to move forward, like First Galactus, First Silver Surfer, First Fantastic Four, and Fantastic Four 1. All those books are going to continue to do well, in my opinion. And I think even some, like Bronze and even some modern books are continuing to do very well. And I think they will continue to do very well. I don't think Spawn, for example, a lot of the Spawn titles have crept up. I don't think that they're going to crash, for example. I think Spawn 1 will continue to do pretty well. ASM 300, I don't think that's going anywhere. I think that's kind of in the pantheon of solid keys now. But what I do think is going to fall back is some of these more minor books that we see value on, things that come from a lot of top 10 spec lists, for example, especially when it comes to the modern stuff. And I think that's where we'll see the most loss as investors or speculators, and just as collectors in general on those books. So what should you do about it? Again, you should definitely formulate your own plan of action. What I will tell you is how I feel about things. I'm really pulling back from all the modern stuff. I continue to buy what I like, cool covers or titles I like, good art, good stories, that kind of stuff. Of course, if I think somebody has a shot at being the next Harley Quinn, the next Deadpool, or even the next Punchline, I'm going to go ahead and buy into that comic book. But a lot of the more mundane stuff, I'm probably going to move away from it. I'm just not seeing the return of investment that I would expect from those books. And I think there's nothing wrong with redirecting efforts into getting older or more established comic books, and try to look for good prices on those, of course, too. I wouldn't recommend overpaying for anything ever. Definitely look at FMV or fair market value totals and try to go for that price. So the last point I'll make about this is try to keep a level head. I see a lot of people getting too excited about stuff. I see a lot of people getting too cynical about stuff. Be excited about comics you love. Absolutely. I think that's the best advice. But when it comes to like investing or speculating, that kind of stuff, try to think about it coolly and collected, and don't let the idea of FOMO control your buying habits. Instead, try to think about, is this a character that I genuinely can see them making their own movie about in 5 or 10 years or whatever? I think you're gonna have a lot more higher success if you focus on things like that. If that's purely the speculation talking, if you like a comic book, buy it. Support your comic book industry that way. And sort of the last bit of investor advice that I'm going to throw out there is, when you see these comic books pop up on top 20, top 10, hot 10, keys to buy, spec list, those sort of things, you guys know those are all out there. I did a video last week kind of talking about some books I wouldn't buy. And this advice kind of goes along with that. If a book shows up on those lists, it's time to sell it. If it's a huge book, you could consider holding on to it. If it's a minor book, if it's something that's just, hey, this character got mentioned and now that book's shot up 50% in price or something, or 100%, I would probably sell it if you're looking to sell comics. If you just want to have it and know that it's worth more money, that's awesome. But so many of those books crash back down to earth. There's a channel that has a show every week that I watch. It's called JP's Budget Collecting, and he looks at CBSI Comic Tom lists 6 months later. And well, first of all, he predicts how those books are going to do when those lists come out. And then he looks at how did it do 6 months later. And more often than not, at least 50% of the time, I would say, those books don't hold their value, or they drop a little bit. And it's real easy to see why when you watch that list. So if you start watching like a show like that, and you start to look at, and he's just talking about the numbers. He's talking about how well it did in that time frame. He offers a little bit of a prediction about whether or not it's going to continue that trend, or whether or not it's going to come back in the future, that kind of thing. But still, it's a fascinating watch. And if you kind of start to learn the market in that respect, by looking in hindsight, how well did these books do, you start to see a pattern. Like 1 in 10 hot covers, or even 1 in 25 hot covers, don't usually hold their value. Event books don't usually hold their value. Option stuff that isn't really going anywhere doesn't really tend to hold its value. Kind of look at the market that way, and I think you're going to be a lot safer. So the last thing I want to say, and I've said it a couple times in this video, but I just really have to hit home on it. If there's something you love or you want, don't let other factors influence it. Just think about it for yourself, and if you want to buy it, go ahead and go for it. I'm not telling you not to buy stuff. All right, guys, so don't get bit by the FOMO bug, and collect what you really want to buy. That's the best advice I can give you. And hopefully you guys found this video to be somewhat entertaining or educational, or just at least inspired you to think about the situation a little bit. And let me know what you guys think about the current situation in the comic book market down below. I know a lot of people have strong opinions, and I totally respect that. Go ahead and let me know how you feel, and we'll talk about it in the comment section. Thank you for watching another one of my videos. I want to remind you, as always, hey, read comics every day.